Hello, Tattoo Jared here. In this dose of self improvement, I would like to discuss the difference between emotional maturity and intellectual maturity. To me, intellectual maturity is when we know something seems wrong in our heads to be expressing, such as jealousy or enforcing a boundary. We feel like it's not always the right thing to do in our heads. But what I've discovered over time is when I neglect to be honest about my emotions, which I call it my emotional maturity or emotional intelligence is the buzzword about it these days, I would find I was unable to grow through my immature emotions when I was having them. And in fact, if I wasn't expressing how I emotionally felt, I was building resentments against the person I was having that emotion towards, right? And this is a very negative thing. And as part of the expression, unspoken expectations lead to premeditated resentments. Very similar thing. So over time, for example, I would think, oh, it's not correct to say how I'm being jealous to a girl about this one particular situation. But if I didn't share how I was feeling, I was really just being dishonest about how I felt. And I discovered that when I'm being true to my emotions and my level of emotional maturity, one of two things would happen. Either I would own my emotion, which I should be doing anyway, and I would enforce a boundary, and I would tell someone how I was thinking and feeling, and they would respond appropriately, and listen, and be respectful, and it would work out. On the other side, though, sometimes, in my more immature bouts, I would discover how I was being wrong. I would discover how I was being maybe a little ridiculous, or maybe a little understanding, or a little too much. But in either case, a good thing happened. Either I was able to be assertive and enforce a boundary, or I was able to learn how maybe I'm wrong, or how maybe that I need to be a little more understanding and try to grow through things. Both of which scenarios are of course good. So I had to learn that I grow more when I'm true to my emotional maturity level, because when I do, a good result happens either way. Now, we need to be careful with this in the workplace, of course. It's not always appropriate to do that. But in order to enforce our boundaries, we need to have a certain level of self-respect and a certain amount of belief in ourselves, right? And if we are constantly being mistreated, we are cooperating with the treatment. We teach others, ultimately, how to treat us. And there's people out there in the world who are a little more type A. They have no problems telling people what they think and what they feel, and if they think another person's doing them wrong. They have no problems. And guess what? They may get into more conflicts, but people end up listening. People generally end up respecting the boundaries. So, and the people who are inclined a little more to be people pleasers or to be doormats or just struggle in enforcing healthy boundaries and being assertive, I implore you guys, and this was me at a point too, of course, to go with your emotions. Own how you feel. Your emotions are valid, and they should be respected. They shouldn't be disrespected. Or at least if you try to enforce your boundary, maybe you'll find out why you're being a little too much or ridiculous. But either way, a good result's going to happen. Your emotions matter. Don't let people talk down to you and tell you that, or minimize your emotions. That's been one of my pet peeves recently, when someone tries to minimize how I feel. Oh, you shouldn't be feeling that way about this. You shouldn't be feeling that way about that. In a very small percentage of the times, they're right. But, like, hey, if you respect me where I am right now, you're going to understand that I'm not perfect in every way. There's room for improvement to be had, right? And the people who care about me should respect how I feel, even if sometimes it's not the most mature thing. And maybe they can help me understand in a loving way how maybe I could be growing through some of those more immature emotions. So there's your daily dose of self-improvement, the emotional maturity versus intellectual maturity gap. And our goal, of course, is to be congruent, to have our emotional maturity level match our intellectual maturity level. That's the goal here. Okay? So I am Tattoo Jared on Patreon. Mellomentoring is my email address if you'd like to reach out to me for coaching or counseling. And I look forward to seeing some of your inquiries. Thank you.